This is the copy of the indictment against Sherry Jackson. Okay. Now, well, actually, it's not an indictment. It's an information. Everybody know the difference between an information and an indictment?
No.
Okay. An indictment is when the district attorney goes to the grand jury, and the grand jury looks it over, and if they think that the person should be prosecuted, they then indict the person.
Bring charges against them.
Yeah, basically. Right, bring charges in plain English. But they call it an indictment. If the prosecutor does not go to the grand jury, the alternative procedure is that he puts together what's called an information. It's basically an affidavit. In other words, a statement under oath, under penalty of perjury. And he takes that to a judge, actually to a magistrate, okay? And the magistrate kind of functions like a grand jury, and he decides whether or not the prosecutor can proceed. And so that's what an information is. So in this case, they prosecuted her based on information rather than based on grand jury indictment. Now, remember this important concept. The sovereign establishes the court, the plaintiff. If you're the plaintiff, you determine what form you want to go in. You determine what the laws are and so forth that you're going to prosecute under, whether it's civil or whatever. The IRS is assuming the posture of a sovereign. They are opening up their court, and they're bringing their charges. Now, after everything I've told you, you know that they cannot be sovereign relative to the people. They are sovereign relative to the citizens. Right? Is that clear? The people own the government, and the government owns the citizens. So the IRS is taking the position when they file their claims, they're taking the position that they are sovereign, and they're treating the defendant as if he were a citizen. They don't stop to ask, are you one of the people or one of the citizens? They just roll on forward and assume you're a citizen. So look what it says in this indictment, or I mean in this information. This is basically, this first page is a notice, or it's a summons. You are hereby summoned. So that's the first page. We go to the second page, and notice what it says. This is count 1. On or before April 16, 2001, in the Northern District of Georgia, the defendant, Sherry Peel Jackson, who is required by Title 26 United States Code and by regulations made under the authority thereof to make a federal income tax return for the calendar year 2000. Right there is the declaration of the law by the sovereign, the decree, right? Do you all see that? Who is the plaintiff in this case?
The government.
The IRS. Sherry's the defendant. The IRS is the plaintiff. Who's the sovereign of the court? The IRS, right. That's the position that they've adopted. You've learned your lesson well. Okay? So now the sovereign has spoken. The sovereign says, you're required to file. That is the decree of the law. See, it looks like, to the person who's not made aware of this, it looks like, okay, they made their statement as required, okay, and you're going to defend against it and so forth. No, this is the law, decreed by the sovereign. Okay? And having had and received gross income in excess of $12,950, the minimum filing requirement for calendar year. See, that's another declaration of law. That's the minimum filing requirement, specifically stating the items of her gross income and any deductions and credits, and he's calling it income. That's also a decree. He's saying what is. This is not, shall we investigate? This is what is. See, it's a very affirmative statement. And it goes on to say what her violation of that law was. She willfully failed to make such return at the time required by such law and such regulations. That is, on or before April 16th, in violation of Title 26, United States Code, Section 7203. So first they decree the law, And then they say that she violated that law, and that this is supported by another law that they're also decreeing. See, one of the things you got to really perceive here is that I can say that that black car is white. I can say that black car is white if I'm the plaintiff. And if the court says the black car is white, then it's white. Okay? That's the law. Now, a person looking at it and say, well, how did he ever come to a conclusion like that? Doesn't matter how he did. The point is, the court had a considered it, and came to this conclusion. Right or wrong, there it is. Now, some people, sometimes it gets so gross, you appeal it, and the appellate court will admit that there was a violation of that there was a violation of discretion on the part of the judge and so forth. But that's when it becomes politically infeasible. What are you saying? Is everybody in tune with me what I'm saying here? The IRS is assuming the posture of sovereign, and then they are decreeing what the law is, and then they're saying here's how the law got violated. Now look at Sim Cannon's case. Sim Cannon was very, very similar. I don't have his paper here, but here's what they did. They went through the whole process, defense and all that sort of stuff. Got to the jury. The jury sent a note to the judge asking, did they have to go through all 700 pages of information to find the law, or could the judge provide them the law? The judge wrote a note back to the jury, and he said, I have already made a determination that the law requires him to file. The jury only has to determine whether or not he filed. So, and in the trial, Sim Cannon always admitted that he didn't file. So it was a slam dunk for the jury to decide. And the judge didn't lie. The indictment came in. The IRS, I'm sure, decreed the law just in the same style that you see for Sherry. And so then they came through and they prosecuted, right? They said he violated and they prosecuted. And this is where they ended up. So that's the law. It didn't exist until the moment of accusation, but the sovereign said so. And the judge knows this, but the judge is not going to fight the sovereign, right? It's not his job. So that's how it's done.
And Sherry did no counterclaim.
Correct. Now, look at count 2. Not much to look at, actually. Required by Title 26 United States Code. They don't even cite the code. He just says they're required. Well, it's true until proven otherwise. And then who has the discretion? And the way they worked it out, you know, she lost. But do you see the mechanics of it is the sovereign opens up his case, chooses his court, chooses his forum in the court, decrees the law, then says the law was violated, and then the jury, not understanding all of this, the jury thinks it's got to decide the facts. Did he or did he not, or did she or not do whatever they say is required? And of course they always say he didn't, because the defendant always admits that they didn't file. That's not the question in the defendant's mind. And then the defendant says, show me the law, right? Where's the law? But they're looking over at the codes. It's not there. Never was there. And the judge sits there and he sees the law, but he doesn't take sides. He remains. Does everybody genuinely see this, how it's working? Slam dunk. Yeah, that's why they're getting so many convictions.
Well, how did Tommy Cryer win?
Yes.
So, what should have happened in order to invoke common law at the time this...
Counterclaim. Sue back. I'm the sovereign and you're the agent. You are exceeding your authority. You bring back your own decreeing of law.
Is there a period of time you can do that?
Instantly.
At the very beginning.
Yes, instantly. Do not wait. Come right back. Punch back.
But you don't know.
Well,
You found out after 30 days.
there's a maxim. There's a maxim, okay? Legal maxim. The law does not protect he who slumbers on his right. And ignorance of the law is considered equal to slumbering. If you haven't taken the time to learn about the law, learn your rights, learn the system, and I'm not blaming you, I'm just saying, you know, because the educational system is all set up to encourage you to not know what your rights are, right? To not understand the system. And so we know where to put the blame for the training, but the fact is the courts operate as if you were sovereign, and because you're sovereign, you are fully responsible, and if you're ignorant, well, that's too bad. Seen one count, you've seen them all. Count 3. required by Title 26 United States Code and by regulations made under the authority thereof to make a federal income tax return for the calendar year 2002. Count 4. Sherry, I believe, is appealing, and she's out until, no, I think she's been given a couple of months before sentencing. She really ought to go back on. I sent an email to her husband, and other people are telling me that they're going to send mail to him, but you know, it isn't going to work for her. You know why? Because she herself must be herself in this process, and she doesn't know. She's going to say the wrong things and slap herself right into jurisdiction again. Counterclaim.
Yeah, but what would you do? Specific.
I'd sue him. I'd put the counterclaim together and sue him. Serve him with the counterclaim. Look, a counterclaim is no different than an ordinary lawsuit. It has all the same things. The real difference is the name. Yeah, it's counterclaim instead of claim. It changed the title, okay? And they are now counter defendants and you're counter plaintiff. But that's the important thing. You're the plaintiff. And then you establish your sovereignty in your paperwork. I'll show you that in a few minutes how you do that. But you establish your sovereignty, and now that you're in your sovereign capacity and it's your court and you decreed what the law is, and remember, they're servants. There is nothing in the Constitution, nor can there be anything in the statutes, because the statutes must conform to the Constitution. There is nothing there that authorizes them to take command of a sovereign. Anyhow, see, I'm really intent on this. I want you to really, truly, in your gut, see that they decreed the law, and that is the law at the moment of the case. Anytime you file a counterclaim, they have 30 days to answer. But when you file the counterclaim is based on jurisdiction. So nothing can happen until the issue of jurisdiction is resolved. When you challenge jurisdiction, everything must stop. Now that doesn't mean they stop. They'll try to push forward, okay? And then you have to go through enforcement procedures to stop them, like a motion to stop them of some kind, okay? Yeah, it's a motion to cease or whatever. Actually a motion for prohibition, okay? To prohibit them from proceeding. Or to stay, a stay motion. There you go, that's the word.
Okay.
Do you have to go to the court again, or they send you mail?
Of course you go through the court. Of course you file in the court. You can file by mail, but you know, you file in the court, sure. But that's the counterclaim. I want to focus on this. If there's any doubt about any aspect of this, what I'm telling you, raise it now, because I'm going to assume you all got it when we get to the next step. Well, apparently there was a court action which resulted in some sort of estoppel order on the IRS. Now, she's saying, who's funding them and keeping them going? How come they keep going? Well, the answer is simple. Nobody's enforcing it. That's all. They chose to ignore it. They move on, and nobody enforces it, so there you are. What should happen is whoever got that order should then bring them in for contempt of court. And then the court can use its contempt powers then to put everybody in jail if necessary to get that order obeyed. But that's a separate issue. If nobody complains about an order being disobeyed, it's as good as obeyed as far as the court's concerned. You've got to bring things before the court. Remember this, when you want something from the court, you always do it with a motion. The first motion that you make is not called a motion. The first motion you make to a court has a special name. It's called a complaint. But it is a motion just like anything else, okay? Yeah, you make a request of the court and you provide all the supporting evidence, and then the other person gets a chance to answer, and then you get to reply to the answer, and then they get to reply to the reply, and it goes back and forth under common law. Under the present equity system, there's only 3 papers. You make the initial paper, and then there's the answer, and then there's a reply to the answer. You're not allowed to bring up new issues in the reply to the answer. The purpose of the reply is to reply to the new issues brought up by them. See, they answer your accusations, but then they can bring up something. So then you have to have an opportunity to reply to that, and then that's where they cut off normally. They keep saying, show me the law. There it is. That is the law, the decree of the sovereign. And they are sovereign until somebody comes along and says, no, you're not. But you have to do it the right way, and defending is not good enough, because defending, see, the plaintiff is the sovereign, The defendant is the subject of the sovereign. So you got to flip that relationship.